Sure thing. So, I guess we got to talk about Douglas Murray, who I've just now been introduced to because everybody who sends videos to me actually secretly hates me. But before we get into that, let's go ahead and get into the fan art section. This one is from Detective Yggdrasil, and I'd like to open the image, but God, wouldn't you know it, Discord broke. I do not understand why it is the way it is, but they said, I've never posted a traditional work, and I'm experimenting with alcohol markers, my third time using them. I hope you all like Detective Yggdrasil. This looks really, really, really good. I adore it. Thank you very, very much for the fan art. If y'all want your fan art to be shown in a future video, albeit in a broken way right now, drop it in the fan art section of the Discord. I will take a look at it, and I will throw it up in a future video. Said why Douglas Murray is some pretty legit evil shit. We're going to end up at the bell curve at some point. So, apparently, Douglas Murray is gay. But he also says that being gay is an unstable component on which to base an individual identity and a hideously unstable way to try to base any type of group identity. That is a quote from him. Now, before we get into what he's actually got as a video for me to look at, Kayla, I appreciate you, but she has thrown some hot garbage my way now. But, so this is a guy who does things like claiming non-binary people aren't valid, despite the data suggesting otherwise. There are people who don't have the same experience with gender as neurotypical people do. He's also the guy who says that homophobia has mostly been vanquished. I'm not even sure how the fuck you manage that one when the right wing has been pushing harder and harder and harder to do that. Dude's a neoconservative who hates immigration, and I wonder if he realizes that homophobia is the exact reason why being gay is used as a form of group identity. Like, the trans and gay identities being put forward for people is done directly as a response to people telling them they should hate themselves for their identity. It is a form of protest, and it is a form that has become so normalized that it has become a standardized form of group identity for people. Hence the word hence the phrase LGBTQ community. Does he realize that it's not the gays, but the bigots who are responsible for that? Okay. So, what do we have in store here? Well, he seems to be the first person ever to actually define woke. So, let's take a listen to him do so. Let's go ahead and get that playback speed up a little faster.
That they believe, for instance, that being a woman should be merely the first step in a wider mission to bring down capitalism. Now, I don't think most women are on board with that, and most women would be rather surprised to be utilized in this fashion. But that is very clearly and explicitly, and I quote the various scholars and writers who've been pushing this for years, this is explicitly the aim. It's a basis for madness.
Okay, so bear in mind, what you're talking about is critical theory. Now, a lot of people who subscribe to critical theory are also feminists, because it turns out that people who are from oppressed classes tend to be people who also want to form bonds with other people in oppressed classes. That's just kind of how it works, generally speaking. So, for instance, if somebody is a woman who used to be a very oppressed class here in the United States, and most of the oppression towards women is still very invisible and systemic as of right now, compared to what it used to be where it was much more flagrant, let's go ahead and say. In previous systems, you would see feminist movements being on the same side as gay movements and trans movements and black liberation movements, because it turns out they were all in a similar struggle together. Now that women are more on an even playing field with guys, we're seeing people try to split away from that and get to the argument that he's making here, where they'd be very surprised to find out that being used in a way to dismantle capitalism. Like, no. The argument for dismantling capitalism is basically that it's a structure that is not only unsustainable, because it's not in the way that we currently view it. The idea that the line must always go up does have an endpoint, and that endpoint is a crash. If you want, you know what, I'm just going to have to do a video after this talking about why capitalism as we understand it right now is not sustainable, and not in a let's use the socialism to beat the bourgeoisies, everybody, hello fellow comrade. Like, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to take numbers. I'm just going to take things like, I don't know, the federal minimum wage, and I'm going to combine that with the real cost of living in various states and see if you can fucking live at all with those numbers. And when I find that you can't, I don't know, maybe you'll understand why people don't like the current system. Now, efforts can be made to improve the current system, things like trying to have a better built minimum wage, things like having better access to workers' rights, things like more support for unions are ways to socialize within the capitalist system, and I'm 100% on board with those things. But I completely understand people who want to just yeet the system and input communism or socialism or whichever ism you think would be better. Because the current system sucks, and any system somebody envisions will be felt as better. I myself think socialism would be the best way to go about things, because I think that people are always going to need to work, and the exchange of currency that we use right now is still going to be the prime form that we use for everything. I don't think we're going to get to the world where communism takes over and nobody has any money and goods never have to be truly exchanged and everybody uses a magical barter system that always works 100% of the time. I don't think we're going to get to that. But I do think that it is reasonable to say, hey, maybe CEOs shouldn't be a thing. Maybe boards of directors that get to pay their way into being on the board by buying shares shouldn't be a thing. Maybe people owning capital and using it to destroy local businesses the world over and replace them with Walmarts and McDonald's, maybe they should not have the level of power that they do. Maybe gas companies shouldn't have the level of power that they do to destroy our fucking atmosphere. Maybe, just maybe, a lot of these industries would be better taken care of if they were handled on a more local and guild level. Just maybe. But that's just me. This isn't a video about socialism. This is a video about one guy talking really hard and gaily about socialism.
When people say the gay community, who are you talking about? It's like, women think this. Oh, really? 50% of the species all agree on something. Blacks say this. Really? Now...
Okay, so statements like gay people generally want to be allowed to marry is the same in terms of how people normally speak in normal parlance. Right? What he's doing is he's analyzing every single statement that can possibly be made about a group of people as if every single one of them says 100% of people say this. Usually, no. If I say, hey, women think this, the statement, the silent part of that statement is women generally think this. And when I say somebody generally thinks something, that means a majority of them. I'm hedging my bets, for instance, that a majority of women in the United States want the right to vote. Now, I understand people like Lori Alexander exist, and they are wrong and stupid and don't deserve to have children, but that is irrespective of the fact that some people do want to vote and some people don't. But in terms of raw numbers, I believe that most people like the option of being able to vote. Just a thought. So now that we've got that little bit out of the way, let's see how many more ways he can misunderstand this.
This is, let me put it another way. If somebody said, I don't know, I just love the working class. They, who? Yeah. I just love the middle class. Who? I love the upper class. Who are you talking about? And it's the same. Why would we be?
We generalize things as a species because we are a social species, and it is a shortcut. You cannot conceive of people as groups of individuals and keep enough processing room in your brain. So if you think about black people in general, you can think of a few black friends, you can think of a few black acquaintances, but you'll never be able to fathom every single person who is black. If you say white people, you can think of yourself. If you're white, you can think of a few white people, friends, acquaintances, family, but you're never going to be able to bring the breadth of experience that is everybody who is white into there. So we shortcut things. That's a thing that we do with the human brain. You'd think this person who speaks so much politically about these groups would have done some basic reading into how group psychology works, but you know.
Would we be falling for this interpretation of society as depending solely or primarily on interest groups based on gender/sex, sexual orientation, race, and a bit more? Why?
It's not that society depends on those. It's that without those advocacy groups, historically, those rights get taken away.
Why would we be doing that? Why would we be taking the individualism out of individuals and lumping them in these demonstrably incoherent bodies?
Because it turns out that as individuals, we have no power. I hate to tell you this, my guy, but as an individual, I have no power. I have influence. There are people in my audience who will do things because I said to do them. That is not a healthy way to think, but it is a parasocial way to think. There are people in various audiences who will do things because the streamer said to do them, whether or not those things are healthy. We as a species are very strong together. We as a species are very weak as individuals. Everybody may feel like they are the most amazing specialist snowflakey individual of all time, but the fact of the matter is, no matter how unique, no matter how great, no matter how individualistic you deem yourself to be, when it comes time to figure out who's running the country, your vote is one of a few million. That vote matters, but it only matters because there are other people voting with you and you are swelling that vote. As an individual, you are not an anime protagonist. You do not have the ability to single-handedly change a goddamn thing. What you do have is the ability to, as part of a group, be part of change. You have the ability to, together with friends and family, make changes. You can make ripple effects. You, as an individual, might make one person's life better, and the impact of that may make that person make another person's life better, and they may pay it forward 1,000-fold. But ultimately, that still is evidence that despite you starting that rock rolling forward, you didn't start that rock rolling forward. Somebody did it to you, and that's how you learned to pay it forward. And then, as more and more people paid whatever good deed you did, whatever good deed was done before you, forward, as a group, you slowly start making the world better. But again, we're back. We are back to us as a social species making change, not as individuals. As an individual, you have the power to start change. You have the power to change somebody's life on an individual level. But when it comes to group things, when it comes to huge things, big things, without access to more people, the scope of what you can do will always be limited. Why do human beings think in terms of large social species? A, because it's a mental shortcut, and B, without doing so, we would never get anything accomplished. Not as a species. If we all pretended to be lovely little individual people, then I'm sorry, but you're not going to have a cohesive society, because you don't have a cohesive society of everybody being isolated individuals. You need people working together. You need people operating together. And that's why interest groups form.
Don't even exist. They don't even exist. The LGBT community. Take me to your leader. Come on. And it's why, as I say, you can...
It's a shorthand of speech, my guy. Do you not understand how a shorthand of speech works?
Always predict exactly who is going to latch onto the latest claim. When, for instance, the big bearded man with male genitalia wins the women's weightlifting competition, you can...
Which doesn't tend to happen.
Predict with 100% accuracy who is going to say, yeah, what's the problem with that? And the people who are going to say, I'm not sure Clive the big weightlifter should be winning the women's category. You can predict it. And the people who say, why have you got a problem with that, bigot? Are always the same people who believed in the past that our societies needed to be pulled apart in another fashion. And now they'd like to do it in this fashion. Has this...
How are you pulling society apart? It's weightlifting. It doesn't matter.
hideous red interior, which keeps exposing itself, as desiring not a better relationship between ourselves and our environment, but for instance, the end of capitalism. This new morality we're trying to construct relies on us pretending we know about things that we don't know about. Trans.
Yeah, maybe you should stop pretending to know about, I don't know, fucking trans people.
Relies on us pretending we know about things that we don't know about. Trans. And simultaneously,
we do know things about trans people. We have a wealth of research has been done on trans people, and yet you ignore it. What the fuck?
Demands that we pretend not to know about things that we all knew till yesterday.
What do you mean we all knew till yet? God damn it. That wasn't a definition of woke. That was word salad. Not Jordan Peterson word salad, where a bunch of big words were used to make it sound important, but that was somebody saying, oh, woke is groupthink, ignoring the fact that every single person engages in some level of groupthink. Now, let's ignore the individual conveniently when we need to, my guy. So he probably does know about fucking trans people, but not about how they live their lives. Classic, this is a new trend in ignoring human history. Yep. And again, the bearded guy winning women's weightlifting competitions. Why do we put so much value on those, by the way? Why is that such a valuable piece of society that it must be so maintained? I guarantee you didn't care about women's weightlifting competitions until trans people were a conversation. But, anywho, let me know what you think of in the comment section below. What's your definition of woke? Insert in the video tagline here. Hey, I just quickly want to give a thank you to all of my wonderful patrons who keep this show running. YouTube and Twitch are a pretty bumpy ride at the best of times, and the stability a Patreon provides me is worth more than I can say here. I'd also like to thank each and every one of my $20 and up patrons here, and they would be Red Joker, Britzkrieg, Cameron, Dren, Jemshin, Smiling DM, Poundini, Mabbity Babbity, Naomi, Isaac, Nixie Chan, the Oberon team, Agamotto, Jordan, Ravi, Giuni, Kiratorian, Prisma, all of you, I'm not saying that part, and Starlight. And finally, thank you to everyone else that helps keep this channel alive. While you're here, why not check out another video? And thank you for watching.